I'm Deborah Boehm. This is Rosemary Spaulding. And like was said, I'm going to raise this up just a little bit because my eyes are not that good. Okay. I started out as a nurse, and then I decided I would prefer education, and so I was a teacher and a principal, and now I'm a pastor, and now we're doing all of this. And so the point there would be that don't limit yourself to one occupation because, you can multitask in lots of different ways. And Rosemary is the same way. She has degrees in what? In the
interior design as well as architectural technology.
But here we are. And so, all right. You all got a handout. It's going to have a lot of the information that I'm going to say to you, but as a teacher, I know that you need to have something that you can look at the same time I'm speaking, and you can take it home, and that will help you remember. So, I'm going to try to make this a little bit interactive, at least in making you think. So I want you to just think for just 1 second about what the difference is between the United States Constitution and the Arizona Constitution. Does anybody have any idea about what's the difference? Okay, no. All right. So the United States Constitution was formed after the first 13 colonies wrote their state constitutions. And so it was not the first constitution written, it was the 14th constitution that was written, the United States one. And they wrote it weak on purpose because they'd just gotten out from under the ruler of a king, and they did not want a strong, powerful federal government. The only reason that the Constitution was ratified was because the people insisted that there would be a Bill of Rights added, which were the first 10 amendments after the Constitution was ratified. In the state constitutions, there's far more specificity, there's far more power in the state constitutions than the federal. So ordinarily, when I'm writing notices and affidavits, I do not use the federal constitution. I use the state constitution. It's more powerful. So, next question. Which is more powerful, state statutes or the state constitution? Think. Who will vote for state statutes? Okay, you're wrong. And so, so the constitutions overpower the state statutes. The state statutes are simply things that the legislature has passed frequently, as you have heard from Andrew Campanelli. They are poorly written and they are unconstitutional. The statutes are unconstitutional. So we try not to use statutes. So just a little bit here, I'm going to go through some education for you. So it says in our Constitution, we the people. Does that mean you? Some people said no, some people said yes. Are you the author of the Constitution? Let's just take the federal for a minute, or the Arizona, it doesn't matter. Are you the author of the Constitution? People say no. All right, are you the progeny, the grandchildren, great-grandchildren of the people who wrote the Constitution? Yes, therefore you are we the people, and you did write it by virtue of being related to those previous people who wrote it. Put that in your head because it's really important. All right, I'm going to read you the preamble. Pay attention to the words. Words are essential. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty for ourselves and our posterity, that's all of us, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. It's essential to know the words. What was the original intent of the words? We tend in our society to go, oh, well, bad is good, good is bad, cool is hot, hot and, you know what I'm saying? We need to know the original intent of the words. So the first thing is, they said they wanted to form a more perfect union. Perfect in law means complete, finished, executed, enforceable, or without defect. And they wanted to establish justice, tranquility, to provide for the common defense and the general welfare. Are we experiencing general welfare with 5G? Not on any level. And to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, us. State preamble of Arizona. Remember, Arizona was the 48th state accepted into the Union. So we came to the game late, all right, which actually, in my opinion, stood us in good stead because we took everybody else's constitutions, looked at them, and incorporated them into our own. State preamble. We, the people of the state of Arizona, grateful to Almighty God for our liberties, do ordain this Constitution. So in order to understand some things, you need to know some words and what they mean. Dictionary definition of liberty. Freedom from arbitrary, now listen to this. Freedom from arbitrary or undue external restraint, especially by government. A right, privilege, or immunity enjoyed by prescription or by grant, the absence of legal duty imposed on a person. Personal liberty is one's freedom to do as one pleases, and political liberty is a person's freedom to participate in the operation of government. The next word that was used in there, both in the federal and in the state, was ordain. Ordain means to order or decree something officially. So I looked up, what does ordain mean in the preamble? And I found the most interesting definition. Here's what it said. Now, listen to the words because I'm going to break it apart for you because it was wrong, just as a for that. Ordain in the preamble means the United States people do accept and enact the Constitution. They are ready and willing to be governed by the Constitution and follow the Constitution's laws and rules. Established means that the Constitution has achieved permanent acceptance and recognition by the United States people. Is this correct? No, not on any level. This was a dictionary definition that, of course, I found online, but people would take this and go, oh, this must be the right thing. The quote says, ordain in the preamble means that the United States people do accept the enactment of the Constitution. Did the people accept the enactment, or did the people create the enactment? It's hugely important. Which one? They created it. They did not accept it. The state governments accepted it when they ratified it, but the people wrote it. So, in Black's Law 5th edition dictionary, establish means the act of establishing quality, state, or condition of being established. Now, just as a fact, up until 2 years ago, I didn't own a law dictionary. I didn't know why. I didn't own a whole bunch of pieces that I now have sitting on my desk. These are important pieces. These words. So, who are the people in control? That's the question. Here's the question. Establish means that, this is what it says. Establish means the Constitution has achieved permanent acceptance and recognition by the United States people. Who has permanently accepted the United States Constitution? Who are the people that they're referring to? Is it you? Or is it the government? They are ready and willing to be governed by the Constitution and follow the Constitution's laws and rules. Are the people, us, governed by the Constitution? How many say yes? Are you governed by the Constitution? No, you are not. No. So, who has to follow the laws and rules of the Constitution? Say it again. The people that are elected. Okay? Yes. Yes. So, the people who take an oath are the people who agree to follow the Constitution. Listen to this. So, all elected or employed in any government agency or position take an oath. All right? Prior to the oath, they are one of the people. After their oath, they are a person. Words are hugely important. Before that, they were a people. Now they become a person who is responsible and answerable to the people. They become a government employee, a servant of the people when they take the oath. So if you've ever taken an oath, you know what it sounds like. I swear to follow the United States Constitution and the Constitution of that state, and there's some other words in there. An oath is a solemn declaration accompanied by swearing to God or a revered person or a thing. An oath, according to the Law Dictionary, it says the clause of the U.S. Constitution requiring members of Congress and the state legislatures and all members of the executive or judicial branch, state or local, to pledge by oath or affirmation to support the Constitution. Now, we use things called maxims of law. Maxims of law are universally accepted concepts in law. They come from common law. Common law comes from the Bible. They also come from court cases, Supreme Court cases as a rule, where the concept that was in the decision is universally accepted. So when somebody is quoting a maxim, there's no question about it, it's accepted. So, maximum of law, there is no stronger link or bond between men than an oath. So, I'm going to skip here because I think we've already talked about person and people. So we use the state constitution and maxims of law for our purposes. And mostly we use the state constitutions. And we apply them to the rights of the people to do or not do certain things. So for example, when the mandates came out for everyone who had any kind of employment to be receiving the COVID-19 vaccine or not have your job, there were a whole bunch of people who did not want to get that injection. The people who did, that was their choice, that was what they did. But the people who did not want to get it had a problem. And so they were applying for religious exemptions at their works, and they were not being accepted because it was an exemption. And again, words are essentially important. Exemption means that you're my employer, and I'm coming to you, and I'm begging you that you will give me a buy on this. So I'm going, nah, that's not what the Constitution says. Every single Constitution, 51 of them, have religious articles in there, sections that state that the people have freedom to worship God however they wish. And every single one of them, federal and state. Now that means if you want to worship a tree, then you go ahead and worship a tree, all right? That's not the point. We all have religious freedom. We have religious freedom to decide what we're going to do with our bodies, all right? What we're going to put in them, what we're going to do. So I wrote a religious freedom notice, and then we adapted it to whatever state constitution it needed to go to. And wherever it was used, not an exemption, a notice, wherever it was used, the person was not required to get the shot, and they did not lose their job. Period. Anywhere. All right. What we had in there was the state constitution that applied to them, and we had quotes from their constitution about their religious liberty. We had quotes from various maxims of law, and we said, you can't make us do what it's not okay. You can't do it. And a notice only requires your autograph at the end, a signature, and a date. It doesn't even have to have a notary. So those were used literally all over the United States, from Vermont to Florida to Boston, Massachusetts, in California, in Washington State, in Arizona here, all over. And wherever they were used, nobody lost their job. All right. We've had lots of other reasons to write notices. As was indicated, we started with school boards because we're grandmas, and we didn't want our kids being indoctrinated with CRT and SEL. And in case you're not aware, SEL is what they're using to sexualize our children. That's what they're doing with that. All right, that's where all this nonsense comes from. We ended up writing school board notices and affidavits and notices for medical issues, discrimination issues, 5G dangers, voting maladministration, and one of our biggest ones has been with CPS, DCS situations where children are being kidnapped from homes and the parents are being put through hell trying to get their children back. And so we have situations in Florida right now, Texas, here. We've had them in other places. Sometimes the one here, we've been working on for 8 months. So it's not a short commitment. It's a long commitment over a long period of time to help people that need to be helped. We had one in Kansas with premature twins. It's closed. We had one in Ohio with a situation where a city council member had reported this woman and her family to CPS because he didn't like what she was pushing at the city council about zoning. And so in retaliation, he reported her. And that's closed. And so we've had successes and we have ongoing battles, but we don't give up. So I even wrote a notice to my own HOA where I live in Goodyear, outside of Phoenix, where they had stupid restrictions about decorations out on the lawns. And excuse me, I just need to swallow for a second. They changed the ordinance, and they changed their HOA law. Okay, so we don't give up. All right, so we have, I think it's the next slide, shows you what a notice starts with. A notice is less formal language, and they are meant to educate and warn people. Thank you so much. Thank you. I don't want to put it by the computer. So notices are meant to warn, educate, and it's less formal language, and they begin the way you see it up there, a blank where you put your name. One of the people is found in Arizona Constitution, Article 2, Section 2. If it's in a different state, it's different articles, different sections. We're establishing our authority. We're establishing our jurisdiction by doing that. Occasionally, we will say, instead of as found in Arizona Constitution, occasionally we will say as found in all 50 state constitutions, all right? Depending on who is going to be going to. If it's going to be going outside of Arizona and we're not just using Arizona Bill of Rights, but we're using other states' bills of rights as well, which we can do, we'll address it to all 50 states. So, that's for a notice. An affidavit, which is on the next slide there, these are notarized documents that are meant to become a court of record. And you see in there, it says, comes now affiant, the blank is your name, one of the people, as found in Arizona Constitution, Article 2, Section 2, sui juris means I'm coming on my own in this court of record. And because it's worded this way, and because of the part at the end that we call the jurat that is notarized, and it's not the way just any old document would be notarized, a specific language, the affidavit itself becomes a court of record. It is the court of record. And in that document, 99 times out of 100, we will say to the people, you have 3 to 5 days to answer this. It has to be answered with an affidavit, on penalty of perjury. You have to answer every single point of how these things are wrong. And if you don't answer it, you have acquiesced, agreed, that everything in this document is true. Okay, now, Tucson, it was mentioned, has turned in 400 of those affidavits to their city council. And Lisa back there has more of them for you to, she's a notary, she can do it for you, and you can sign the Tucson affidavit. All right? So we use these documents. We usually submit notices first, then we submit affidavits. Sometimes in the case of Tucson, where there's enormously hard nut to crack, we are going to be doing other things like submitting a notice of default, telling them, we told you what to do, we told you how to do it, we told you if you didn't do it, then you're going to be in trouble, now you're in trouble. All right? And then also built into the affidavit, frequently into the notice as well, is the fact that we withhold the right, we hold on to the right, that we may go to an arbitrator of our choice at your expense to have this matter settled. Okay, so in Tucson's case, if that's what we decide to do, they will be paying, the city council will have put themselves in a position where they're having to pay the arbitrator, and we'll get to say what has to happen. Like new ordinances, for instance. Yeah, the arbitrator will look at the affidavit and be able to use that as the information. So, yes, we use state constitutions because state constitutions have more authority and power than the federal. I mentioned in there that we can use all 50 state constitutions. The way the constitutions in all 50 states are written, there's always a bill or declaration of rights. It's either Article 1 or Article 2 in every single state. The bills and declarations of rights are for we, the people. Yes, ma'am. Yes. And they're for we, the people, which means that even though you may not live in Maryland or in Washington State or in Florida, we can use those bills and declarations of rights because they're for everybody, for all of the people. So if we find one of those that's worded better than one we're in the state that we're working with, we will pull that one out and use it. And we indicate in the document that we may do this because we can. All right? So, let's see. My last point here. Arizona Constitution, Article 2, Section 1, Fundamental Principles Recurrence 2. It says, a frequent recurrence to fundamental principles is essential to the security of individual rights and the perpetuity of free government. Russ mentioned this one. I am so sorry. We wrote notices and affidavits with this in mind, that we have the responsibility, not just the right, but the responsibility to frequently remind the elected oath-taking officials that they must do what the people are wanting them to do. Perpetuity of free government means the state of continuing free government into the future. George Mason, one of the founders of the Constitution, said, "No free government of the blessings of liberty can be preserved to any, or the blessings of liberty can be preserved to any people, but by frequent recurrence to fundamental principles." The Bills of Rights in all the states, the common law, which is based on the Bible, the maxims of law, which are universally accepted principles of law, are the fundamental principles. That's what everything is based on that we do. We have to be prepared to talk about our constitutions. We have to be prepared to remind our elected officials about what's in those constitutions. They say, "Oh, I read the Constitution." Well, which one did you read? "Well, I read the federal one." Well, read the state one, because it's far more specific to your job, far more specific. Every single state has a separate article on legislative, executive, and judicial requirements. Every single one. All right, so I'm going to try and end here. One more thing. We, the people, have sovereign power. We're the sovereign power, not the people who were elected. And we need to keep that in mind, and we need to frequently remind them of that. And so you have in your handout what else I was going to say. We've run out of time, and so we're going to go ahead and honor that and go into questions. Let me have that paper. Oh, here it is. I have one question here already. So if citizens drafted a protective ordinance based on others out there, would it be effective to present it as a notice or an affidavit? The answer is yes. It would have to be done carefully. It would have to be done in a series of notices to prepare the ground. You know, you don't just go plant seed without tilling the ground and putting some fertilizer in and all that. You would have to prepare the ground, but yes, it could be done. Okay.
Testing. There, it's on. Okay, I kind of have a statement. So in August, my son went to Yavapai College to do the EMT course as a dual enrollment, high school and senior. The college trying to tell us that he had to be vaccinated of all kind to take the classes. So I fought tooth and nail with them. I called an attorney in Prescott, and he said, "Yes, I could hire you, but I can't because I sit on the Board of Health." So he said, "What I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer my secretary. She can tell you where to go, the exact link to find in the Arizona laws that no one can force you to be vaccinated for anything. If none of you guys know that, I have the documentation. So let me know, and I will be happy to pass that along to anybody."
Yes, and my religious freedom notice that I wrote is on our affidavitmomma2021.com website, available to anybody. It's a Word document, and it's available to anybody to use, period. All of our documents that are on our website are available for anyone to use. Yes.
This is an online request for information. Notice 1 is 6 pages. Hopefully they worded it right. Notice 2 is demands. Can you summarize notice number 3, which is brand new?
Okay, so for Tucson, I wrote 5 notices and an affidavit. For Yavapai, we've done 2 notices, and then we got the 3rd notice, and we haven't gone to an affidavit yet. In the 3rd notice, I did some investigation, and so this one is addressed to the county attorney. And the county attorney in every county has certain stipulated jobs that they are to do, and one of them is to convene a grand jury, if that's what's required. So, we are telling in number 3, the county attorney what his or her job is, and do it. That's the summary of number 3.
Thank you.
And let me just comment on 6 pages in number 1. The only reason 6 pages in number 1, and I never do this ordinarily, but it had to be done. I was working with Russ, and in number 1, it states all of the state statutes in the order in which they apply, one right after the other, 6 pages of them, that allow city government to govern their use or not use, permitting, not permitting of small cell towers. 6 pages, one right after the other, of statute that allows city governments to do what they should do. That's why it's so long.
Thank you so much. What about military and presidential order to override the state when it comes to border protection?
So can you restate it one more time? Because I'm sorry.
When the president can override the state's laws about border protection.
He can't.
Then the military, if you have a son or daughter in the military being forced to take the COVID shot.
We have actually a religious freedom military notice, okay? And besides that, any executive order from either the governor or the president has no weight in law. It's a strong suggestion, but it has no weight in law. Oh yeah, another one, 1 second. We did one for the sheriffs to remind the sheriffs in every county in Arizona that they're to keep the federal government, the FBI, anybody else out of their counties. So we did that one as well. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
This has been one of the best days since February 2020. That's when everything changed. I had a question just as far as, you serve people with affidavits and notices, and then when they continue to just not do anything, are they in jeopardy then of losing their position, or does it go to a recall election? Because that's a concern right now.
Right. So there's options, and so far, because remember, everybody, we're just learning, right? I mean, we're like maybe 1 step ahead of you guys, maybe 2. We're learning every day more stuff. And so we're about in Maricopa County to initiate a recall for Bill Gates, who was the head of the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors for the 2022 election.
Yeah.
That's going to happen this month. That's starting this month. So, but that's separate from what we're doing here with notices and affidavits. So far, I forgot to mention something. Thank you for asking the question. One of the things that we have had people say is, well, they don't work. We haven't seen any change. Well, actually, what we watched for was changes in behavior. So, with the school boards, we would supply the school boards, which are horrible, with notices and affidavits, but we would send them to Ducey as well. and we would send them certified. And we would know when he received them. And approximately 3 days after he received them, he would do a press release that said, well, we meant to do it this way for this while, but now we're going to change our mind and we're going to do it this way instead. That happened several times, and it was because he had gotten our notices and affidavits.
And that's what I would expect.
Every single time.
Is that they would roll over. But if they don't, does it go to an election, like a recall election?
If there's a recall, then it goes to a special election after that.
Yeah, I know.
We're aiming, we now have a name of a company in Texas who does arbitration, who's not connected to the government in any way.
Yeah.
We're going to start using them to take some of these people we gave, school board people that we gave affidavits to a year and a half ago, and they thought they got off scot-free because we didn't do anything. We're about to hold their feet to the fire. And so, yeah.
And as far as like the election process using technology in this state, are you aware of anybody issuing affidavits about that concern?
We've done voter integrity affidavits, and notices mostly, not affidavits. I can't even count how many.
Okay.
We have. It's a huge problem. We need
sure.
to go back to 1 day, paper, count them by ourselves, and in precincts. That would end the problem.
God bless you. Truly, we've been fighting, and I left because we didn't have the exact way. Everything you said is what we did do, and they just could ignore it. So what you've done is amazing. So I want, in 2 years, holy moly,
I know. And 2 years ago, I knew nothing.
Yes.
Nothing. And in 2 years, it's really like a God drop into my head.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, anyway.
Everything that you've written on here is phenomenal. It's knowledge that I've had, but I don't know how to put it like you. You guys are wonderful. I want to make sure everybody knows, is your website Affidavit Mommas with an S 2021.com?
Yes.
Because I didn't see it on here.
Yes, it is.
It didn't see it, and thank God.
Oh, and the other thing, speaking of that, is I put on that handout that if you're going to use the Constitution, do not go to azlegislative.org. Do not go there because they leave out parts of the Constitution. Go to ballotpedia.org/Arizona, and they give you the complete Constitution, including all the amendments and when they've occurred and what happened, and so that's your source.
You are a blessing. And are you here, or are you somewhere else in Arizona?
We're in Phoenix.
You're in, oh my
But we're
God.
available. We're totally available. People contact us from all over the country. We don't even know how they found out about us. We really
again,
do not.
God bless you.
Amen. At what point do these public servants become personally liable so that they might have to personally pay a fine, lose their house?
Yes. And so in the arbitration process, what we have seen, so David Jose also establishes private membership associations, PMAs. This is like a side eddy, but it's important. He established some of those for some gymnasiums around the country so that they could function when everybody else was closed. So because they were a PMA, they were separate in the private from anybody who could do anything to them, including sheriffs, police, all of those people. And so they were open. And guess who came to the gyms? The police. And they worked out there. And so in two different situations, one in New Jersey and one in California, somebody thought that they could, overpower this and make everybody just do what they wanted them to do. And so they were given an affidavit that says that we'll go to arbitration with an arbitrator of our choice at your expense, And that's what happened. And in each case, the one in New Jersey was like $1.5 million settlement for the people who were coming against them. And in California, it was a little bit less than that. So when it gets to the arbitration, then it gets down to the people who have actually ignored, acquiesced, and yeah.
And that's why these are so powerful, because nobody wants to lose their personal possessions. We've got time for probably one more question.
Thank you. This is amazing. So all of this is addressing the people in government. And of course, the other half of the equation is the people who are in business, who are telling the government to do all these terrible things. Is any of this applicable to the corporate world? Can we use any of these tools to do the same battles instead of only against our local governments, but actually the larger perpetrators?
Yes. So Rosemary's whispering in my ear here. So one of the first things that happened was back in 2021, when they were telling everybody they had to wear a mask, one of our people did a notice to Sprouts and said, not doing it. And you can't make me because we haven't gone through due process. Okay? And Sprouts bowed to it. And nobody had to wear a mask going into Sprouts. We've done the same thing with various different corporations. One of the people that we've helped is airline pilots, one of whom almost got arrested in Spokane, Washington for not wearing a mask, which limits your oxygen, before getting on his plane that he was going to fly, one of the big ones. And he almost got arrested by the TSA people, but then American Airlines decided they wanted their plane to arrive on time, so they said, no, don't arrest him, and let him go to wherever it was, Dallas or Houston. And he hasn't worked since. So he hasn't flown for them since December of 2021, all right? So we have filed notices and affidavits against American Airlines and some other places as well, corporations. Yes, because here's the key. Corporations exist because we've given them permission to exist through the Corporation Commission of a particular state. That's how it works. If you want to be a business in a state, you apply to the Corporation Commission and you get a business license and you function and you have bylaws and so forth. If you violate those bylaws and you violate state law and you violate Constitution, you can have your business license revoked.
Has that ever happened?
Not yet, but we're working on it. Oh yeah, I will give you one more example real quick. The Auto Workers Union, this is a biggie, in Detroit, and the Detroit car manufacturers wanted to make all of their employees get the shot. And we wrote a notice. It was distributed to all of the workers who signed it and turned it in. And a week later, the UAW said, well, we didn't really mean it was a mandate. We meant it was a strong suggestion. And the same thing happened with OSHA. We turned in a notice to, what's his name, the Supreme Court Justice that was handling the OSHA case. And in his decision, he quoted out of our notice.
Thank you, ladies, for giving us back our power.